In this video, we're going to explore how algorithms and game systems gently guide us, shape, and influence our behavior when we play, even when it feels like we're playing freely. There are a couple of key traits that we need to explore and understand. The first is reward shaping. This is a subtle manipulation of when and how you're rewarded to create habit loops. So in Pokemon, we know that like shiny charm increases and sandwich power stacking in Scarlet and Violet, for example, are examples of reward shaping. There are also behavioral funnels where in systems that slowly eliminate other play styles, they swap them out in favor of the platform's preferred engagement path. So some meta builds in Pokemon Unite are examples, and then also in Pokemon Go, the raids requiring specific type matchups when you're taking on boss battles. There's also invisible gatekeeping, which is technically when you can access something, but it's not without grinding for hours or layered by additional barriers. In Pokemon Go Fest, these tickets are exclusive, and then there are like rank locked events in Unite. There's also overfitting play where the game rewards repetition, not allowing us to really experiment. We're sort of locked into that grind. This could be IV perfection, or if you're building like really competitive teams for cloning. And then another example would be breeding loops. To better understand all these terms, we are revealing an unseen system in the Pokemon universe, and it's influencing the behavioral infrastructure. And behavioral infrastructures are these invisible systems and routines that are built into platforms and games that are going to subtly guide user behavior without force. So this is like the gentle hand on your back, sort of nudging you forward. Hey, raid it this time. Hey, get your team of grass types for this boss raid. In Pokemon Go, we can see this when players are going to walk more to hatch eggs. So you have like 12-kilometer, 10-kilometer, 7-kilometer, 5-kilometer eggs to hatch. This is also logging in daily to keep your streaks, and then raiding at specific times because the infrastructure is going to reward when you play at these times and do these behaviors. These routines are not shaped by the user's choice, by us as players. They are shaped how the rewards and the friction to obtain those rewards are structured. In Pokemon Unite, you're aware of battle passes, and there are these like time lock challenges for specific arenas, and these normalize the daily check-ins, but they do it slowly. And then the newer characters are stronger for this idea of power creep. We're nudging players to purchase or grind to stay relevant so that they choose those stronger Pokemon. And then in Scarlet and Violet, there's the shiny sandwich mechanics, and basically what this does is it allows you to generate better shiny odds. So the shiny sandwich mechanic means that you need specific ingredients, and then also to go to online guides to optimize and encourage repetition to generate shinies. And then in Scarlet and Violet, there's also auto battle favors. So it's creating a passive play loop where instead of this idea of upskilling, it's sort of de-skilling active battle strategy. Another structure through Pokemon is this idea of the rhetoric of automation. This is basically that these platforms, they don't speak through words as we would as humans, but they are speaking through their interfaces, the default designs, the algorithms, and even the flows, the workflows of how you navigate settings or transfer Pokemon or, create a new team. And these are those nudges that constrain our behavior. In Pokemon Go, this is the autofill raid lobbies. So it's prioritizing that the Pokemon that are system selected and reinforcing that game logic over player choice. There's also the augmented reality mode for Pokemon Go, and that's going to auto-prompt new users even if they turn it off. And I find myself, anytime there's a new update for Pokemon Go, that a lot of those settings get disabled, and somehow Adventure Sync gets turned off, and the AR mode gets turned on. So in these two instances, it's a platform-preferred UX flow. It's a platform-preferred user experience flow that they are nudging. Their hand is at your back slightly, nudging you towards this. In Pokemon Unite, we've already talked about this, but auto-selecting battle items and then auto-pathing in the tutorials. So these are all flattening the complexity that we have as users and trainers into what is a default. There's also the matchmaking that is pretty concealed, and what that is telling us rhetorically is that as players, we trust the system, even though the system is tuned for retention, not necessarily fairness. In Scarlet and Violet, again, the auto battle system, it's going to strip decision making. So the experience is delivered with the minimal input. That's complicated because you have to find other ways to play if you're going to subvert that in Scarlet and Violet. And then there's raid matchmaking, which is often misrepresented in terms of difficulty because it's going to lure players into lost loops unless they conform to type matchups and pull out their strongest teams. So it's taken away that creativity. All right, so what can we do? We have talked about some patterns and observations that we observe and feel and notice when we play these games. So what is it that we can do? Well, we can turn to some small tactical responses. And remember, tactical responses are on a smaller scale, and they are subversive moves by users and us as players who, navigate or resist the dominant systems from within. And these dominant systems are how the platforms want us to play. We've talked about this before, but in Pokemon Go, you have some players that spoof GPS, and although this can be linked to cheating, some players do it to liberate themselves from geography locked play. So maybe they're in a rural area, or they're just in a place where their raids aren't very good, right? Some other Pokemon players ignore the events altogether. So they may play older games, they may take a break from the app. There's less pressure if they're removing themselves from Pokemon Go. And then in Unite, Pokemon players can use the non-meta Pokemon to disrupt a more homogenized match flow, which means that some players are going to choose to play custom games or even use friend lobbies, like if you're playing with your friends. So they're refusing the matchmaking mechanics that are designed and layered as barriers by these platforms. And then in Scarlet and Violet, players can build, more aesthetic or like joke-oriented teams. This could be shiny collectors who are going to reject competitive norms. And it's also allows others to kind of replay with personal rules. So no sandwiches. You could try nuzlocking and other methods. Maybe you're doing an all-crab team or something to reclaim these challenges in Scarlet and Violet. So just remember that you can still play, but you don't have to play it their way. The tactics are not simply the button combos that we can observe. The tactics we can leverage are choices that we make outside the meta. Now that you know that they're there, good luck, be free, and I hope that the Pokemon universe finds you well.